So let's face it, your homeschool is just good. It's not really great like that homeschool mum down the road. She is super cool and she has so much fun with her kids, but can you have a homeschool like that? Absolutely, and I'm gonna give you 10 tips to help you turn your homeschool from good into great. Now these are gonna be actionable steps, so make sure you have your notepad with you to take notes, because I'm gonna go through this stuff super fast. Let's get started. Number 10 is a matter of housekeeping. Teach your kids to pick up their stuff with a good attitude, with a good grace. Do not let them grumble. This is just a simple matter of talking them through what grumbling is and how it discourages others around us. I think that these habits that kids often learn throughout their life could so easily be nipped in the bud by just having those honest conversations. So for example, you say, Luke, pick up your shoes, and he goes, oh, I don't want to pick up my shoes now, I've got better things to do. You go, oh mate, you know, that makes me feel really bad and it makes my day bad, so maybe I won't be as joyful when I interact with you. So do you think you could just pick up your shoes with a good grace? And you could even say, hey mum, I'm so thankful to God that I have shoes in the first place. It's really important to teach children to stop grumbling when you're teaching them to do certain tasks for you. And when you teach them to not grumble when they do those tasks for you, they actually start to enjoy it more, which makes you feel more like giving them more jobs because they do enjoy it and they love to help you out. Also encourage them a lot as you go along in your homeschool journey, as you teach them how to clean up after themselves through the house. Next, it's actually really important to teach your kids how to behave. A lot of the time we parent on automatic mode. We just think that the kid will learn how to behave on their own because, you know, you're such a great person and they'll learn it by osmosis. But this does not happen. Good manners are taught. If you're taking notes, I've written down a few things that you want to very exactly teach your children. The first thing is to teach them to say, excuse me, when they interrupt you. People will think they're so polite when they do this, but it also just helps them wait. And then when they say to excuse you to you, put your hand gently on their arm to let them know that you've heard them and you're waiting for a break in the conversation to talk to them. The next one is to teach them to say please. This means that if it pleases you, mummy, then let this be done. Explain to them that this is polite and also makes you feel more inclined to help them with the task they've asked for help on. And then of course there is thankful. Again, this is the same reason. It makes you feel more inclined to do what they want you to do next time they ask. Fourthly, I like to teach my children how to ask for things gently. There is a definite art to asking. You can just say, please, thank you. And that's just not gently said. Whereas if you say, please, thank you, that is gentle. And this goes down really well with siblings. They really respond to the tone in your voice as well as to what you're saying. And you're also really teaching a child how to behave in a context as well, which is important. Then there is how to share and how not to snatch. I often talk to my little boy and tell him how the other person would be feeling if he did this or that. And I find that really helps him to process what's actually happening in the situation and not just think about himself. And then one I love to teach, so it's not just teaching a child to pick up his own stuff, is to pick up after his siblings. And he'll say, Mum, it's not my mess. Well, life is not always fair, is it? And I tell him that, goodness me, Luke, the amount of things I do for you, and it's not my job to pick up after you, but I do it because I love you. And I think often you can do that for your sister. Of course, you don't want this to be a burden for them, and that is really important too. Another way you can turn your homeschool from a good homeschool into a great homeschool is to not start your homeschool too early. I cannot emphasize this enough because this can really burn out the children, but it can also really burn out parents so that they say, this is not for me, I don't like doing this, my kid hates this and I'm such a bad teacher. Well, often it's because parents have just started too early. What I often do with the curriculum I get is I start the child at it. And if I'm picking up that they're really not getting this, they're not enjoying it, they're going too slowly for the material, then we will start again. Maybe we can start a month or two down the track, and that's okay. When you start them, when you notice that they start to engage with the material, then you're like, okay, well, this is fine. Let's start now. And you can start slowly. Take it by feel. Often we think that lessons have to be done one day after another, but you don't need to do that in homeschool. If they're having a really great day, then let them do lots of lessons. If they're not having a good day, then slow down. You can even slow down for a few months. There is no problem doing that. There are some people who let their children only start learning to read at age 12. Goodness me. And then you know what happens? The child actually catches up. I mean, I personally think that the child's gonna miss a lot of joy of reading in that time, but it does tell you that children catch up. And certainly you can wait a few months, if not a year, to let your child catch up to the level they should be at to enjoy the material. And that is how you develop a real love of learning for your children, which is the real key to homeschooling, developing that love of learning. Okay, my next 2 points, number 7 and number 6, are actually pretty closely related. And that is because the first one is spend more time with friends, and the second one is spend less time with friends. And I think it's often wise for us as homeschool mums to really analyze where we are socially. Sometimes we're just completely worn out and we have had way too many social occasions on the horizon we're not looking forward to, and that are just exhausting to think about. And sometimes you think to yourself, we haven't seen anybody for a long time. We've been having a long break. So it's really good to carefully think about where you are traveling socially. It's also good to be really honest with yourself and say, are you an introvert? And perhaps your children are extroverts and they need that attention. They need you to go above and beyond socially for them. Or perhaps it's the opposite and you're a real extrovert and your children are introverts and they need just a little bit more alone time. Now, my 5th one is, I am afraid, one that you may roll your eyes at, and that is because it is about trying to make your marriage into a great marriage. How do you do that? Well, coffee is always a good idea, but no. I think the best way to make a marriage into a great marriage is to be sacrificial. That is, even if you don't feel like it, love the other person. Even if the other person has done nothing to deserve it, love them well, and they will see that and they'll respond to you and love you more for that. And then you'll feel loved and then you'll feel like loving them more. It's a bit like a positive feedback loop. And then as women, it's really important that we respect our husbands, because husbands, they really need that respect. And if they're not getting it, then they don't feel loved and they find it harder to love you as a woman. The next thing you want to do is spend some more time in nature. Really engage with it. Get yourself out there for whole days at a time. Kids absolutely love this. Pack a picnic basket and take a picnic blanket with you. I often just do peanut butter and jelly and take a few pieces of fruit along with me. It makes it really easy, and you can replicate it often, a few times a week if you want to. And then for me, if there's an admin task or a bit of work I'm really not looking forward to, I take my laptop with me and I connect my phone internet up and I do my work while my kids play out on the picnic on the grounds, wherever it is we go. I take my laptop with me, or we could do a little bit of schoolwork when we're out, a quick math lesson or a quick reading lesson. It's just absolutely beautiful to soak up the sunshine and the rays and to get a little bit of work done to boot. I also find as a family it's really helpful to read the Bible together and to pray together. I pray with my husband at nighttime as we go to sleep, and that's just a wonderful time of bonding and chatting together. It's also good to do this with your kids. We do this as a family as we go to sleep at night together. My husband will usually pray, or I will pray, and that's beautiful for the children to see that we pray. This is usually fairly quick because honestly we are quite exhausted by the time the kids go to bed. And then Bible reading, if you can do that as a family, that's fantastic. We find it a little bit tricky with my husband's schedule. He's a physio, so he goes off quite early in the morning to do his job. And so I sit down with the children over breakfast and we read the Bible together. Generally, we read about a chapter of the Bible a day, and questions will go back and forth between the children and myself as we talk about the passage. Next thing that you really want to be doing is you want to be spending more time listening to audiobooks, or rather your children want to be doing this. I find I really love audiobooks because it increases my knowledge of the language, and this is happening to your children too. It is amazing the words Luke already knows. Even though he can't read properly, he has an incredible vocabulary, and that's because he listens to 2 hours of quality audiobooks a day. Now, I will link the book list that I use down below. This book list is based on amazing books throughout history, so the child gets a knowledge of history. But these books also teach amazing character traits like loving your neighbor and being kind and being gentle and caring for others, and so many other things that the children need to learn. And this is told through stories. So they're living books, they're educational storybooks that convey things the children need to know and should know. So what I do with the book list that I've linked below, I just go onto it, whatever is age appropriate. I find that if the child listens to a lot of audiobooks, often they can go up even a few grades and listen to those audiobooks. I type in the name of the audiobook on YouTube, followed by the literal word audiobook, and then it's often on YouTube, so you can listen to it for free. Now, point number 2 is to take some time off homeschooling. Have a parent or some trusted friends really just look after the kids for a couple of hours. Then go do some exercise, some shopping therapy, or perhaps just a little bit of knitting. Oh, I think I just dropped a stitch. Alternatively, you could just go on a date with your spouse. How much fun would that be? But you need to be intentional about booking this time in. It often will not happen unless you actually pick up the phone. So why don't you go now and pick up the phone and call that friend or call your mum and get them to look after the kids so you can go on a date? Why don't you do it now? Yeah, go get your phone now. You know, one of the easiest ways to turn your homeschool from a good homeschool into a great homeschool is to make sure you're using a decent homeschool curriculum. Something that's really colorful, that is really fun, something that's hands-on. Perhaps you've got video lessons. Make it fun. Don't forget, you're going to be using this thing for hours every day with your children. So not only do you want your children to enjoy it, but you want to make sure that it's something that you enjoy doing with your kids as well. So if you don't know much about homeschool curriculum, you can learn about a whole bunch of really great options in this video right here.